See you then.
Nobody bats 300 anymore because the value of hitting a fly ball, which could eventually become a home run, is so much more valuable. It's when the shift in the NBA went from 2-pointers to 3-pointers. Well, if I can make 40% of my threes, I'm just going to jack threes all over the place. There's more value in that. Well, there's more value in just like ripping driver most of the time.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Ole Miss got left at the altar, and Ole Miss decided, I'm either going to let her continue to embarrass me, or I'm going to have some self-respect and kick her ass out the door and lock it behind her and not let her back in. And that, for me, is the right thing to do. Lane Kiffin had the right to leave. Yep. He chose to leave. I wish you the best of luck. Not really.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
You take a look at it, you say, all right, well, can they do this? But the one thing I know, every year I love the SEC championship game. Like this year, we're going to get a pretty good treat in the Big Ten because you have Indiana and Ohio State. But every single year, it's never like I don't have to watch that. Because the reason I bring that up is there's a game that's going to be on 8 o'clock that probably should just be played at midnight or 1 a.m. The ACC championship game. Like, things are not the same.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
It's stunning to think that, right? And I had the over on the win total or going into the year with the Patriots. It was 8.5. I thought they could win 10 games. They've already won 10 games. And that is a stunning turnaround, to go from worst to first here. And they're not the only team that could do it. The Jaguars could do it too. They are right on that precipice here if they handle their business against the Titans the next couple weeks and, at least split between the Indianapolis Colts those two games.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on Sports.
Welcome back. It's another night right here on SportsGrid of Game Time Decisions. Kevin Walsh with you on this Tuesday night as we settle in right here on the decision desk for the NBA Cup final. The NBA Cup, a undebatable, massive, massive success. What a delight it is to have Cup action here. And we're going to get into the Cup in quite a bit. But I do want to just sound the alarm, if I may. As you join us here, right now, Duke, top 3 team in the country, Duke, is down 7 at home in the first half to Lipscomb with 12 minutes played. Now, it's early. Duke is still quite a sizable favorite in this basketball game. However, they were a 33-point favorite entering. That is down to 17.5. Total climbing up to 163.5. We could have ourselves some fun action to follow early tonight on Game Time Decisions. This game could be ripe for the picking as it pertains to a live wager, so I am really excited about that. We just saw Michigan State tip off in their matchup as well with Toledo, so we will track any and all of this action. But we dive in, of course, with your main event top game being the Knicks and the Spurs in Las Vegas, the standalone NBA Cup game. And you look at the path to get here for these two basketball teams. The Knicks actually started Cup play with a loss and against the Chicago Bulls. They had to fight their way back to win that group. It's exactly what they did and find themselves beating an Orlando Magic team that many felt could be the new group in the East, if you will, and through the offseason that they had. Now, it doesn't maybe tell the full story because the Orlando Magic have had an up-and-down season with a on minutes restriction, Paolo Banchero, and unavailable Franz Wagner. But I thought the Knicks, to some degree, showed who they were. Dominant efforts from both Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns in that basketball game. For the San Antonio Spurs, kind of the inverse role. They are looking up at the defending champion, Oklahoma City Thunder. And they welcomed back Victor Wembanyama for the first time in a couple of weeks. And they handed the Thunder their second loss of the season. And it felt like San Antonio really did something. It feels as if San Antonio sparked something with that victory. I believe at least. All of a sudden, you pick your heads up, and tonight's game won't impact records. The Spurs are 18-7. The San Antonio Spurs right now, they look at the standings, and they're a loss back of the 2 seed. The 2 seed. Now, they are in the moment the 4 and have as many losses as the 5 and only 2 fewer than the 9, but it gives you an idea that San Antonio does not want to be a fun story because Wemby's awesome. And they want to be taken serious, and they will now be taken, I think, far more serious moving forward after their game against Oklahoma City. But it also means they will be taken serious tonight up against the New York Knicks. And I don't see any reason for us to not put it on the board, because my best bet is in this game tonight. And I am excited for this one. We have great best bets for you tonight. I am not the only one. It's a loaded night on the ice. We've got George Kurtz coming here in just 10 minutes' time. Always great to talk to George. I am going to lay 2.5 with the New York Knicks against the San Antonio Spurs, because I think you will get an A++ effort from the Knicks. I think the New York Knicks, a team who are trying to reach for a new level, can prove something tonight by beating the team that beat Oklahoma City. I think the Spurs are coming off of a game that obviously it was all out there, right? To beat Oklahoma City, it's going to take a lot, and it took a lot. And you might say, well, Wemby was on a minutes restriction. He still is, reportedly going to play between 20 and 25 minutes in this basketball game. I think we are getting a really good number on the Knicks. I'm going to lay the 2.5. And this is one of the 2 biggest games on this slate. Sammy Arnell's best bet comes from this game as well. Give him Josh Hart over 13.5 rebounds plus assists. It could have a little bit of a playoff vibe. And Josh Hart in the postseason stuffs the stat sheet. So I don't mind that look at all. You'll notice, though, for Chris and AJ, their best bet comes from the same game. Not the same game as us, but the same game as one another, because the other biggest game on this slate is obvious. It's a top 20 matchup on the college basketball board between Tennessee and Louisville. And I'm really excited for this game here. I love watching Louisville play. I love betting in Louisville games. We know that. Game of the year when they played Arkansas, that total, and it gets there, sings the song, 89-80. We'd love to see it. This total tonight at 157.5. Every single game I watch with Louisville, I think, let's get the over. Truly. And while that over is tempting, I don't mind how Chris plays it either. Each team to score 74, minus 110. It's cooking the books a little bit, right? Instead of playing a pure over. Spread says it's going to be a tight game. AJ's looking to go the other way. He's going to lay the 2.5. He'd love a route burial blowout on the Vols at home. And we know the value of being at home in college. We saw the value for Louisville this year when they were on the road against Arkansas and they lost that game, but at home against Kentucky, right? We've seen that make the difference in some of those results. So, and it's a gotta-have-it spot a little bit for Tennessee, right? Since beating Houston, they've lost 3 games in a row. Tennessee had a moment where it's like, wow, this is going to be ranked one of the 5 or 6 best teams in college basketball. All of a sudden now, they could be out of the AP Top 25 if they don't win this game here against Louisville. So I see the motivation. I also really like a play in this game. Give me Nate Ament over 15.5 points. I love when you get an NBA guy in an up-and-down game, and that's what Nate Ament is, future top 8 overall pick, I think, when we get to June and do the NBA draft. He's been going through a couple of struggles. You look at the games against Illinois, Syracuse, shoots in those games 6 of 26 from the floor, and that actually goes all the way back to the players' era getting underway. Houston, he was 1 of 8, 5 of 15 against Kansas. But I think you'll see Nate Ament get to the line, get to the cup, hit a couple of threes, and play him one of the better games, especially adjusting for opponent in his career. Louisville can guard, but it's all about offense. It's all about up and down. At home, I think you see Nate Ament play great. He's not played a home game in a long time, all right? He hasn't played a home game since they were at a conference because they were in Vegas, and then they went up to Syracuse, and then it was a neutral site game for Illinois. I really, really like my chances with Nate Ament tonight. One of my favorite bets. Again, we're locked in on the Knicks, but we're locked in on Nate Ament as well. As far as the rest of the college board goes, and I'll say this, it's one of those nights sometimes you want to, let the board speak to you a little bit. I know I want to get involved more. I haven't played anything else just yet. Ranked teams all over. Johnny's in action. They open Big East play against DePaul. UConn is going to open Big East action against Butler. The number 1 team in the country, Arizona, against Abilene Christian. They're going to lay 33.5. Calipari's Razorbacks with a big-time total against Queens University. Not in lovely Queens. I believe that's actually in Charlotte. That's a $169.5. Kansas plays tonight. Do we see Darren Peterson, who played as much as he could but didn't close against NC State? Jayhawks still get a win. It's a great college card. It's a great college card. Here's what you also get college-wise tonight. The official start of bowl season. That LA Bowl, sorry, they did it to themselves. Nobody cares. What were you doing playing on December 13th? I don't really understand. That was an odd one. In some way, you're like, hey, be grateful, but we had stuff on. We weren't into it. It is what it is. It passes us by. Tonight, you get the Salute to Veterans Bowl, and I'll tell you this, OK Dubs are struggling. Because that is, and look, the numbers update, so I'm not calling, that graphic is now outdated. That number has moved a lot, right? That's by the way, the 1.5 point spread for Jacksonville State was already a significant move from open. This is a game when the book started 3, if not 3.5 out there on the Gamecocks. They're now a field goal favorite against Troy. And if you think I don't care about that, you just don't know me. We're talking about almost a touchdown of movement all of a sudden. I thought I was going to play Jacksonville State. I might be too late to the party. And we might have to figure some stuff out. So we're going to look into that. Again, it's a sneaky loaded Tuesday, which means you made the right choice being here on Game Time Decisions. George Kurtz joins us.
For those of you who have never watched, we could easily just call it true or false, but we got creative because that's what we do. We create content here on the show. We call it buy or sell. Tucker will lead the Bucks in touchdowns this season. I never, ever would have thought that this would even be a buy or sell, but here we are.
It had to be frustrating last night that he stole the one, right? Got the goal line carry there. I don't know when he became the goal line back, but he is. That being said, this is a pretty easy buy for me. I mean, he's got 6. Rashad White has 4. You want to guess how many Bucky Irving has, Craig? How many touchdowns do you think Bucky Irving has this year? You're close. You're close. He's got 1.
Yeah, easy buy. Yeah, they're using him near the goal line, too. I did see some metrics that said that Irving has a hard time getting in the end zone, by the way. When it's close, he usually scores from outside, so it does appear that Tucker will lead the team in touchdowns this season. All right, 2 players that are going to be drafted inside the top 5 in fantasy. I probably could say, honestly, George, inside the top 3 in the first round of fantasy football next year. Jahmyr Gibbs will have a higher ADP than Bijan Robinson next season.
Gibbs, I think, is close to your number 1 next year. I do. I think we'll trust him more than McCaffrey because he stays healthy. I'm assuming PPR when he catches so many balls, so does McCaffrey. But we love the Detroit offense here. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these guys, by the way. All right, I'd be happy with all of them. But I think me personally, if I had, if it was Gibbs, McCaffrey, which I think is really your 1-2 there, I'm going Gibbs.
No, and I think I think next year's number 1 fantasy draft pick, it's not that it's going to be bad. I just think there's a lot of variation going into next year. I could see any of 3 or 4 players as of right now going number 1. I would have said Jonathan Taylor, but he slowed down.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Game Time Decisions live here on a Tuesday night. And like I said, sneaky loaded slate, and it means that the ice is offering up, and that means I need a little bit of help. Because I can sit here and talk about how cool it is that it's McDavid Crosby. Well, is that going to help people get to the window? That's why we've got George Kurtz with us. You can catch George across the SportsGrid network. George did an excellent job helping the team out on Sunday with Pro Football Today. I might have one or two football questions for George as well. George, great to see you, my man.
Always good to be here, Kev. Talk a little hockey, a little NHL. Anytime, man. My pleasure.
It is it's a really, really big slate tonight, George. And I'll go a little out of order, though, because I do want to start with that Penguins-Oilers game. I feel as if for what would still be your casual hockey fan, if you're going to get McDavid and you're going to get Crosby out there, there's going to be that incentive to watch it, to bet it's a primetime game. Is this a game that you're going to be getting involved with?
Absolutely. It's actually the game of the night, not so much for Crosby and McDavid, but because of the big trade that happened between these two teams last week, right? By swap of goaltenders. Jarry for Skinner here, and they're both starting against each other tonight. I think a lot of us in the hockey world were wondering, would that happen? Or would they say, you know what, we don't want you starting against your former team. We'll put the backup in tonight. But no, they're scheduled to have Jarry versus Skinner tonight. So will one or the other have jitters, nerves? I'm going to find this game very interesting here. It is the game on TNT starting in about 45 minutes here. So, yeah, I'm in on it. I'm going to go Edmonton here. All right.
Okay.
I probably trust Jarry. Edmonton plays a different style of hockey, right? That it wasn't all Skinner's fault, and it'd be unfair for us to blame Skinner. They don't play defense. It's like baseball in Coors Field. We want to score as many runs as possible here, right? We're not going to care about pitching there. It's just the way they attack the game. They run and shoot in football back in the day. They're not worried about defense. Not all Skinner's fault here. How will Jarry handle that, Kevin? I don't know. None of us knows. Mm-hmm. Maybe he is more athletic than Skinner, so maybe he'll be better going side to side for those one-timers. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. No one knows here. That being said, I'm taking the over here. Edmonton's the better team. I'll take the Oilers as well.
Can I ask you just quickly with McDavid, George, because I'm well aware of who he is. I can clearly see the caliber of season Colorado is having, and along with Nathan McKinnon. But it is always jarring when a player of McDavid's stature has seen the drop that he has when it comes to the MVP, the Hart Trophy. And I'm not saying McKinnon isn't deserving, but are you in any way surprised at the gap that right now exists between McKinnon and McDavid?
Well, we have to remember two things here. Colorado got off to a wow, right? Well, they lose 2 games in their first 25. They had an incredibly hot start. Edmonton did not, which is historically true, right? Last 3-4 years, Edmonton can't get – they don't understand that the hockey season starts in October. They really don't show up till American Thanksgiving here. That's about when they start to play better here. So he got off to a slow start. The team got off to a slow start. McDavid's playing much better now. They're two different kinds of players. McDavid is more not that he doesn't play defense, but he's more offensive, where McKinnon is more of a great two-way player. He's a bulldog. McKinnon wants to go through you, run you over. McDavid wants to go around you, make you look foolish. The kind of guy, if you're playing against him, and listen, I played hockey for a long time. All right, this guy may shake me out of my jock. Right? He may make me look stupid, where McKinnon just may hurt me. That sort of thing. And so McDavid's the guy you're always worried about because no one wants to be made foolish, right? Hurt one thing, foolish is another. So different kinds of players here. I think in a lot of ways we're also getting bored of McDavid because he does it every year. Yes, he's the best player in the NHL. It's sort of like, hey, how did Mike Trout not win more MVPs when he was the top guy? How did Bill Belichick and Tom Brady not win more awards when they were winning all these Super Bowls? Because I think the voters get bored after a while as well. Not that McKinnon wouldn't be deserving. I'm not saying that. But I think the voters do get bored.
I will say, now, just the way, if McDavid isn't the best statistically, he just doesn't have a chance because of what you've said, right? He not only has to beat out everybody, but beat out himself. And McKinnon right now does lead this league in points with 55, the most goals at 26. But it's one thing I remember, George, because I think we spoke early season about the fact that McDavid was just not scoring goals. And I feel as if he is still on one of the best goal-scoring stretches of his career. He scored 1 goal in his first 10 games. He scored 17 in what would be, I believe that would be then 22 games. Like, it has just been a completely different run out for him, and I think it's been incredibly impressive. So I might as well then ask you about the Avs, because, again, you see these numbers, man. On the road tonight, I get it, the Kraken aren't amazing. Minus 300. I mean, that is just massive. How do you get involved with this game, George?
Well, obviously, are the Avs going to win? More than likely. Seattle started off the season pretty strong. They've leveled off some now. They've got some injuries. They've got some problems as well. Also, the backup goaltender's going tonight. So I might give you – there's backup goaltenders, by the way, throughout the NHL tonight. I don't know if all teams came to an agreement, but it's like half a dozen going tonight. A little strange here for a Tuesday night. It's not like it's a huge back-to-back night here. You can't – you can put them in a parlay, but you're probably going to need a 3-team parlay now. So to go that – this is what I've done, by the way. We can find a 3-team parlay, and I love parlays. So that's how I'm attacking the Avs tonight. I think they're going to score goals as well. So you want to take McKinnon to get over 1.5, maybe a power play point. You can certainly go that direction here. Maybe I'm a big Nichushkin guy. I have an anytime goal for him to score tonight. He doesn't always play with McKinnon, so we have to watch those lines here. But I don't worry about that too much in hockey because these lines change all the time. Just because someone starts on this line in the first period doesn't mean he's going to end it in the third period. But there's lots of ways to attack the Avalanche. And don't forget about Martin Necas. All right, he's had a great season as well. He's slowed a little bit of lately as well, but you can take him or Makar to once again 1.5 power play point. I think Avs score at least 4 goals tonight. Wouldn't shock me if it's 5 or 6.
It's so tough, and I think it's kind of the NHL season is obviously in line, and it is comparable to that of the NBA season, but NHL betting is far more similar to Major League Baseball, right? Totals are in this tight vacuum. You're betting more money lines or maybe run line, puck line. But what's interesting is, again, in a 162-game season, the best teams are losing 60, 70 games. In an NHL season, that number is less, but they're still going to lose. Minus 300. It's such a big number. It's such an interesting sport, I think. And again, when you get a big number like that. Let me ask you about this one quickly because it's Bedard. They're in Toronto against the Maple Leafs. Is that a game you're going to be betting, George?
Bedard's out. He's on IR.
Oh,
he won't
okay.
return for a couple of weeks here. That's a big
that.
thing. Because we don't know if he'll be on the Canadian Olympic team because by the time he comes back, the rosters have to be in. Right. This plays a big part in it, by the way. Lots of injuries this year. No Bedard. Wall is back in net for Toronto. I like the over. I'll take a shot on the Maple Leafs, too.
Great update. I did not know that. Bad job by me. We're going to talk to George about a few more things here on this ice after the break on SportsGrid.
For those of you who have never watched, we usually just call it true or false, but we got creative because that's what we do. We create content here on the show. We call it buy or sell. Tucker will lead the Bucks in touchdowns this season. I never, ever would have thought that this would even be a buy or sell, but here we are.
It had to be frustrating last night that he stole the one, right? Got the goal line carry there. I don't know when he became the goal line back, but he is. That being said, this is a pretty easy buy for me. I mean, he's got 6. Rashad White has 4. You want to guess how many Bucky Irving has, Craig? How many touchdowns do you think Bucky Irving has this year? You're close. You're close. He's got 1.
Yeah, easy buy. Yeah, they're using him near the goal line, too. I did see some metrics that said that Irving has a hard time getting in the end zone, by the way. When it's close, he usually scores from outside, so it does appear that Tucker will lead the team in touchdowns this season. All right, 2 players that are going to be drafted inside the top 5 in fantasy. I probably could say, honestly, George, inside the top 3 in the first round of fantasy football next year. Jahmyr Gibbs will have a higher ADP than Bijan Robinson next season.
Gibbs, I think, is close to your number 1 next year. I do. I think we'll trust him more than McCaffrey because he stays healthy. I'm assuming PPR when he catches so many balls, so does McCaffrey. But we love the Detroit offense here. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these guys, by the way. All right, I'd be happy with all of them. But I think me personally, if I had, it was Gibbs, McCaffrey, which I think is really your 1-2 there, I'm going Gibbs.
No, and I think I think next year's number 1 fantasy draft pick, it's not that it's going to be bad. I just think there's a lot of variation going into next year. I could see any of 3 or 4 players as of right now going number 1. I would have said Jonathan Taylor, but he slowed down.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Back at the right here on a Tuesday night on SportsGrid. We're joined by George Kurtz going through some of the options on this NHL board. We're going to mention a couple of items over in the NFL as well. George, just give me an idea, one or two more games on the NHL that you're really keyed in tonight.
Oh, look, listen, I'll start with the team I root for, the New York Islanders. Matthew Barzal may be out tonight. We're still waiting here. So I tried to find out before I came on here. It's still, I guess they said he had a maintenance day. Maintenance day means you play, right? When you have, practice the day before. This is obviously more than maintenance. If he's out for the Islanders tonight, no Bo Horvat, no Kyle Palmieri, hard not to like the Detroit Red Wings tonight. Only minus 128 here. I do not expect a high-scoring game. Islander Sorokin has played outstanding of late. He's a brick wall. John Gibson revived now at Detroit. But the lower scoring game. But I'm going to be leaning towards Detroit heavily, assuming Matthew Barzal is out, which we will find out within the next 10 minutes.
All right, not bad. Now, George, from the NFL perspective, obviously it's a very, it's a very busy time. There's a lot of crazy things that just took place over, this weekend. The Mahomes injury, the Micah Parsons injury, and all these things. But I do think under the radar, I'm sure not to you, was Dallas's loss on Sunday night, I think potentially alleviating all of this pressure for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, maybe not, because the Eagles are insane, and, they might find another way to make everybody angry, but there was this moment where it's like, wow, Dallas might catch them, and Philly might allow that, and now we have this situation where if the Eagles beat Marcus Mariota on Saturday, the Cowboys' season is over before they take the field in that next game. Where are you at right now on this Cowboys team this season, rest of season, the outlook overall of it?
I mean, Kevin, you've heard me say it many times. The Cowboys aren't going anywhere under Jerry Jones. All right. There's an old saying that we all know. The best thing the devil ever did was make people believe he doesn't exist, right? The best thing Jerry Jones has ever done is make people believe he cares about winning with the Cowboys. He does not. He cares about running the team his way and doing what he wants to do. That's what he cares about. If he cared about winning, there'd be a whole bunch of different changes going with Dallas, right? You'd hire a real coaching staff. You wouldn't be the GM. You'd hire a real GM and stuff like that. So it is what it is. He can say all he wants about Micah. He traded Micah because Micah peed him off, all right? He got mad. As he says, he has a saying, don't let your money get mad. Well, he let his money get mad, so he traded Micah. The Cowboys, who had a little bump after the trade, right? They had a little bump defensively. Well, now the numbers tell you they're the exact bad defensive team here. All right, we know they don't win Dak or pressure games. Let them show up here. It was, as a Cowboy fan, it was nice to be able to root for something. When they had a chance here, Philadelphia was struggling here, but we all knew the Phillies, the Eagles are playing the Raiders, the Commanders. All right, the Bills. Okay, maybe lose to the Bills and then the Commanders again. They were not losing twice. They're really going to lose to the Commanders here? I mean, come on. That wasn't going to happen. And by the way, even if it did happen, Cowboy fans really thought they would sweep, right? I mean, come on. This team's been inconsistent for years now. Nothing's really changed with Dallas. It is what it is. Even Jerry Jones said it, Kevin. He likes the soap opera. He likes it. He likes doing this sort of stuff because we're all talking about it. Win, lose, draw. He doesn't care. He's making money.
I just think it's one of these interesting things. And so I agree with you. And again, not from the Eagle fan perspective. And it wasn't only the Cowboys, but the amount of teams are like, hey, if they win out, oh, interesting, the whole league's going to win out. If the Chiefs win out, if the Chargers win out, if the Texans win, it's like they all play each other, guys. We can't all win out. But for Dallas, you have this very weird season where they make these defensive changes and people are like, man, you got a good defensive player in here. We're really good. Oh, you mean the guy you got rid of in Micah? And now you think about, well, what is Dallas going to be next season? And I think people are going to be really excited about them, George. I think when we talk about next year's Super Bowl odds, not that they're going to be near the favorite, but they're not going to be where they were entering this season. And it's going to come back with all these expectations. And I don't know what that looks like. Because I think one of the things that works in Dallas's favor this year was the lack of expectations and the catch them by surprise nature of this group. Look, they're fascinating. They're always fascinating, but it does feel self-inflicted. I think you described it well. They did miss an opportunity this season to surprise people for more than just a couple of weeks.
Listen, the Cowboys next year, it should be interesting. Do I think they'll re-sign George Pickens, or do I think Pickens will be with the team, maybe on the franchise tag? Yes. But what happened to him the last two games? Usually when Pickens doesn't show up, he gets mad at something. What was he so mad about in Detroit that he didn't play? And was really invisible last week as well here. They do have 2 number 1 picks right now. They'll be 14 and 23. I imagine they'll both be on defense. We'll see how that comes about. Eberflus is going to be fired. We know that. Jerry Jones pretty much came out and said that today.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But it's always a soap opera in Dallas.
It sure is. The nice thing for George, at least he knows how bad it is. Adam Kaufman might not know yet. We'll try to figure it out after the break.
For those of you who have never watched, we could easily just call it true or false, but we got creative because that's what we do. We create content here on the show. We call it buy or sell. Tucker will lead the Bucks in touchdowns this season. I never, ever would have thought that this would even be a buy or sell, but here we are.
It had to be frustrating last night that he stole the one, right? Got the goal line carry there. I don't know when he became the goal line back, but he is. That being said, this is a pretty easy buy for me. I mean, he's got 6. Rashad White has 4. You want to guess how many Bucky Irving has, Craig? How many touchdowns do you think Bucky Irving has this year? You're close. You're close. He's got 1.
Yeah, easy buy. Easy buy. Yeah, and they're using him near the goal line too. I did see some metrics that said that Irving has a hard time getting in the end zone, by the way. When it's close, he usually scores from outside, so it does appear that Tucker will lead the team in touchdowns this season. All right, 2 players that are going to be drafted inside the top 5 in fantasy. I probably could say, honestly, George, inside the top 3 in the first round of fantasy football next year. Jahmyr Gibbs will have a higher ADP than Bijan Robinson next season.
Gibbs, I think, is close to your number 1 next year. I do. I think we'll trust him more than McCaffrey because he stays healthy. I'm sure in PPR, when he catches so many balls, so does McCaffrey. But we love the Detroit offense here. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these guys, by the way. All right, I'd be happy with all of them. But I think me personally, if I had, it was Gibbs, McCaffrey, which I think is really your 1-2 there, I'm going Gibbs.
No, and I think I think next year's number 1 fantasy draft pick, it's not that it's going to be bad. I just think there's a lot of variation going into next year. I could see any of 3 or 4 players as of right now going number 1. I would have said Jonathan Taylor, but he slowed down.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Game Time Decisions live with you right here on a Tuesday night. A couple of these best bets from the team are about to go off the board. AJ laid it with Tennessee. Chris took each team to score 74. The news for this game that kind of sneaks under the radar, the nature of college sports, is that Mikel Brown, who is arguably the best player on the Cardinal, will not play in this game. We'll see how that impacts things. Will be a fun one to follow live. Looks like Duke Lipscomb could be a fun one as well. 48-45 at the break. Duke did battle back and get themselves actually the lead at half. Again, there could be some meat on the bone live. We will investigate that. But we got some things to get to. But our good friend Adam Kaufman is always great to get to talk to Adam. We'll do a little NBA Cup as well, probably canvass a number of things. But I have been waiting to ask Adam a question since the Patriots.
Wait just a little longer. Could I see that graphic again of all those plays that you just put up? Who the hell is that in the top left corner?
Listen, I told them I said we need to update these photos. The thing is, I'm too friendly with the producers. They're like, that's funny. And then they just ignore me. So that's the problem we run into here. I agree with you. I don't know who it is at all. It doesn't look like me, certainly.
When is the last time you looked like that?
Years. I mean, I'm wearing band glasses in that. Like I try to wear those clear glasses on air. They got banned. I'm basically Michael Jordan with the band. I mean, it's
how about that.
So the parallels are, it's an outrage.
Would never.
No, certainly not. I look ready to go. But there's a question I do have for you because the last time we got to talk, at the time, the the Patriots were still on their win streak, and everything was absolutely wonderful, right? And then they were up 21-0 against the Buffalo Bills, and that is the so far peak of the season for the New England Patriots. And then everything that followed would, I think, be maybe not the low point. Maybe that was losing at home to the Steelers or the Raiders, because those are obviously, not great moments. But there is one takeaway from this game that I feel strongly about, that I know the market disagrees with, and I imagine you will as well, which I truly do not think Mike Vrabel is deserving of Coach of the Year. And that is how much of a swing that game can have. Mike Vrabel, who had been unbeaten off bye, has a 21-0 lead at home in their biggest game of the season, and they blow that football game. And Vrabel has a fine case. There are just much better cases out there between Sean Payton getting a 1 seed with Bo Nix and Kyle Shanahan winning potentially 13 games with a zombie squad in San Francisco. And there's a few more in between that. So I'm curious if you think I am reacting too harshly to Mike Vrabel's Coach of the Year candidacy.
So I thought you were going to give me, I don't know, Ben Johnson in Chicago or something like that.
I think him as well. I think Liam Cohen in Jacksonville. I probably think McDonald in Seattle.
I think it's an asinine take. I do.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I think you could make a case for Ben Johnson. You could make a case for Liam Cohen. You could make a case, obviously, for Seattle. I don't really buy into San Francisco, nor do I buy into Sean Payton in Denver. Bring it back, though, to Mike Vrabel, ultimately. And you're right. The peak of the season to date is a 10-game win streak, hat and T-shirt game, as they call it around here, a championship game, an opportunity to punch your ticket to the playoffs and win the AFC East against the team that has owned that division ever since Tom Brady left. You're up 21-0 in that game, 24-7 at halftime. Absolutely. That is a chance to really step on the throat, so to speak. And to say it slipped away would be an understatement. I'm sure we'll talk more about that. All of that said, if we're looking at this bigger picture for Mike Vrabel, this team is sitting at 11-3. Even if you want to tell me, and I wouldn't say it's a crazy take, that the Patriots, who are underdogs, lose in prime time in Baltimore against a certainly more desperate Ravens team coming up here this weekend, but then go on and beat the Jets, beat the Dolphins. That is a team that wins its division, that has 13 wins in a season in which Vegas had 8.5, I believe, was the win total. And anyone really in their wildest dreams around here, me being obviously in the New England area just outside of Boston, anyone who believed this team was going to be good, or even maybe very good, that was still defined by 9 wins, 10 wins, wild card playoff team. This team under Bill Belichick and then under Gerard Mayo last year won 4 games each of the last 2 seasons. They might have 13 wins here in year 1 under Mike Vrabel, and a quarterback who, after what we just saw against Buffalo, I think we could probably say is not going to win the MVP, but certainly at halftime of that game was still very much in that conversation against Matthew Stafford. All of the things that have gone right for this team, the story, coming back from the dead over the last couple of years, reigniting, obviously, this organization, looking like they've got the future of the franchise at QB for the next 10, 15 years, and a guy doing it in year 1. To me, I think Vegas has it right. I think it is so clearly Mike Vrabel who is going to be and should be the Coach of the Year in the NFL. You could make cases elsewhere.
Sure.
Absolutely. But Mike Vrabel, to me, is a really easy one when you start talking about a 13-win division winner that had really kind of low expectations coming into the year.
But so that's the thing, right? Is I don't think their expectations were that low because we knew they had improved the roster.
Did you think they were a playoff team?
Yeah, I bet them to make the playoffs. Obviously,
all right. Well, I did too. I think we're in the minority. Most people did not think they were a playoff team. Vegas didn't think they were a playoff team.
Right, but they weren't 4-1 to make the playoffs. They had better odds to make the playoffs than the Jaguars. Right? Them making the playoffs is not as big of an upset as Denver winning the AFC West. That's It's just not. I mean, I can pull up the numbers. I know the
no,
numbers.
I mean, that's fair. The numbers are the numbers. I think when you're looking at the AFC West, you're looking at a remarkably competitive division, obviously. More competitive than even people thought, was going to be the reality between what the Chargers, did throughout points of the year. And I know they've dropped off a little bit, but they'll be a playoff team. Seattle, pardon me,
Kansas City?
Kansas City, thank you. Kansas City, ultimately, this is it's a range of things that ultimately have gone south for this team. Kelsey looks like dust out there. You had injuries to Worthy, the suspension to Rice. There's no run game to speak of. There are all sorts of roster issues, and obviously Mahomes, even though a guy out in Kansas City lost his job for saying it going into the year, he looks out of shape, and obviously now he's got the ACL injury that he's got to rehab in addition to getting himself in better physical condition to play the game of football. I'm not going to sit here and say Patrick Mahomes, like the dynasty is definitively over.
The Kansas City season fell apart, but the Chiefs were still favored to win the AFC West going into Denver off bye, and then they lost that football game to Sean Payton's Denver Broncos. Again, I think to knock off the Kansas City Chiefs is at minimum an equal accomplishment for New England to knock off Buffalo when we talk about taking over a division.
Sure. I
think the 1 seed was supposed to be New England's until they blew that football game yesterday. And I also think, and I know this is this weird thing, right? Because it's a negative. It's like I'm allowed to say things about my brother, but you can't. The New England schedule is a joke, and we've known that. It's probably why we both bet them to make the postseason. And
so's Denver, by the way.
Well, no, Denver's is just, I think, automatically more difficult because they play within the AFC West.
Because of the division. But outside of the division, very easy.
Well, Denver has a win over Philadelphia as well in their back pocket, right? I mean, so I just...
But Denver was... Without remembering the odds, I'd be willing to bet Denver had a better playoffs.
Playoffs for sure, but if we talk about beating expectations, they've done that. Them beating the 1 seed is far longer.
Fire the podcast up.
For those of you who have never watched, we could easily just call it true or false, but we got creative because that's what we do. We create content here on the show. We call it buy or sell. Tucker will lead the Bucs in touchdowns this season. I never, ever would have thought that this would even be a buy or sell, but here we are.
It had to be frustrating last night that he stole the one, right? Got the goal line carry there. I don't know when he became the goal line back, but he is. That being said, this is a pretty easy buy for me. I mean, he's got 6. Rashad White has 4. You want to guess how many Bucky Irving has, Craig? How many touchdowns do you think Bucky Irving has this year? You're close. You're close. He's got 1.
Yeah, easy buy. Yeah, they're using him near the goal line, too. I did see some metrics that said that Irving has a hard time getting in the end zone, by the way. When it's close, he usually scores from outside, so it does appear that Tucker will lead the team in touchdowns this season. All right, 2 players that are going to be drafted inside the top 5 in fantasy. I probably could say, honestly, George, inside the top 3 in the first round of fantasy football next year. Jahmyr Gibbs will have a higher ADP than Bijan Robinson next season.
Gibbs, I think, is close to your number 1 next year. I do. I think we'll trust him more than McCaffrey because he stays healthy. I'm sure in PPR, when he catches so many balls, so does McCaffrey. But we love the Detroit offense here. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these guys, by the way. All right, I'd be happy with all of them. But I think me personally, if I had, if it was Gibbs, McCaffrey, which I think is really your 1-2 there, I'm going Gibbs.
No, and I think I think next year's number 1 fantasy draft pick, it's not that it's going to be bad. I just think there's a lot of variation going into next year. I could see any of 3 or 4 players as of right now going number 1. I would have said Jonathan Taylor, but he slowed down.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Game Time Decisions. We are back with all of you on SportsGrid. We're back with Adam Kaufman. I will say this: we have NBA Cup to discuss. This is like a tease for an off-season segment. Kaufman laid out a potential Patriots situation in which I will then argue Mike Vrabel is actually the worst coach in football, and I will and we'll just pretend. I know it'll have any idea what's going on, but we're gonna leave it at that. I do want to get to some of the NBA Cup stuff. I think there's, again, countless other things we could get to in the NFL because I think it's just such a fascinating time, of course. But I want to ask you this, and then we'll get the picks respect of it. Do you find, I don't know where you started on the NBA Cup, but have you been more won over by it as it's now into year number 3, or unmoved, or less? Where's the Kaufman scale?
It started with, what the hell are they doing? This is wildly unnecessary, generally pointless, and this is just something that Adam Silver is doing to drive ratings. That's where it began for me. Where it has evolved is all of those things are still true. However, it's undeniably a better product within those games more often than not. There are obviously exceptions. There are still blowouts. But because the players are being rewarded for winning the way that they are, and being paid the way that they are, and care the way that they do, because they do, not about raising a banner to celebrate the Emirates NBA Cup, but because they want the payday. They want the $500,000 or whatever it is. They want the money, especially these younger guys that are real tryhards out there who aren't getting paid a fraction of what the superstars get paid. It makes these games more compelling. Now, all that being said, do we actually learn anything? Is there a point? Do we need it? No, not at all. You know, it's Adam Silver has always been moved by international soccer tournaments, and he's trying to bring a variation of that into the NBA with this in-season tournament. Doesn't make a difference. All it does is muddy up the schedule for a few weeks and confuse loads of people, including the players themselves, and ultimately doesn't serve any real purpose. You know, this is now year 3, like you said. We've seen the Lakers win, and of course they raised a banner, which, as much as I would like to sit here and mock the Lakers for doing so, I'd be willing to bet that's written into the bylaws of this whole thing, and they didn't have a choice. And then after that, the Bucks win. When you will remember last year, they destroyed, absolutely embarrassed off the floor, the future NBA champion, Oklahoma City Thunder. And I'm sure you remember at the time, basically a year ago right about now, the referendum on the Thunder. This is the team in the West that everybody is supposed to be scared of? Are you kidding me? Look at what Giannis just did to them. Well, look at what happened all those months later, and look at what's going on right now. To that very point, this team just got knocked out by the San Antonio Spurs. Did I envision that happening? I did not. Does it say anything about what's going to happen in the playoffs? It does not. Does it mean anything right now? Not even a little bit. But we get to see Wemby in prime time going against Jalen Brunson, couple of all-NBA first-team contending type of people, if they can actually stay healthy and stay on the floor for the minimum 65-game requirement. And they can get this thing out of the way, finish it up for Christ's sake, move to the 2 games tomorrow, and then start to get ourselves into a normal schedule again. No, it does not move me in any sort of favorable way. I wish it would go away, but it's here to stay, and it's more for us to bet on, I guess. At least you know, a la a playoff game, if you're looking for, you know, certain edges when it comes to betting props, that type of thing, it's not a guessing game. You know who's going to play. You know what the minutes are going to look like as long as you get the competitive, desired game. You know, you can shrink down the rotation and examine this thing and know that these guys are going for it because to them, in terms of their wallets at least, it means something.
Yeah, I mean, the short thing I'll just say is, for years I had to listen to everyone be upset that the NBA regular season didn't matter. And then they found games to give games where they matter. And then people are like, yeah, but I don't want it to matter like that. I don't know what anybody wants. I think I do is people want to be angry at the NBA, and that's just been a thing for a long time. So since you know how to bet this game because we know who's going to be in this game, how are you betting this game?
Well, I think on the Knicks side, and I want to be careful how I say this, because remember, there are no locks. There's nothing free. There are no guarantees. Injuries happen, or just, hey, there are bad reads. But to me, intuitively, and it's a little narrative streety, don't get me wrong, you got to play the over on Jalen Brunson points. The Knicks are going for this thing. They want it. This is a team, an organization that actually does want to raise a banner for this stupid thing. They will look at any excuse to raise a banner. Don't forget, when they were in the conference finals last year, they were renaming freaking streets across New York City. They care about putting a banner up at MSG for this thing. So go over on Jalen Brunson points. Ladder him up. 35, 40. He's going nuts in this game because he has to, because there's not enough around him to do it, to not do it by himself. All of that being said, on the Spurs, you have balance there. I will continue to believe, and I know Wemby came off the bench last time around, but obviously that's your dude, and we saw what he did, even when there were all these concerns as to what the workload was going to be. The offense is going to filter through him. It's him, it's Fox. Fox probably scores 25 plus points. I'd look to the over on him as well. And then there are just guys that I generally like. I like Castle. I like Harper. I like Bridges on the other side. I'm not going near Towns. Especially, if anything, if I were going to do anything with Towns, I'd go under on his rebounds with a guy like Wemby on the other side. So those are the aspects of this game, and more than anything, and I could be wrong about this, could be wrong about all of it for all I know. I know the Spurs just knocked off the Thunder. I'm still kind of getting over it, really. The Knicks -3 and -105? I don't see how the Knicks don't win and cover in this spot. Again, they just care more.
A lot of caring in there. You're still shocked about the Thunder's loss. Sounds like you were drawn in. Sounds like you sneaky love the NBA Cup. You just need to come to terms with it. And I think once everybody does, we'll be much, much better off. Adam Kaufman, we appreciate it. Bowl games, we're talking about all of them. Kind of. Next, right here on SportsGrid.
For those of you who have never watched, we could easily just call it true or false, but we got creative because that's what we do. We create content here on the show. We call it buy or sell. Tucker will lead the Bucks in touchdowns this season. I never, ever would have thought that this would even be a buy or sell, but here we are.
It had to be frustrating last night that he stole the one, right? Got the goal line carry there. I don't know when he became the goal line back, but he is. That being said, this is a pretty easy buy for me. I mean, he's got 6. Rashad White has 4. You want to guess how many Bucky Irving has, Craig? How many touchdowns do you think Bucky Irving has this year? You're close. You're close. He's got uno.
Yeah, easy buy. Yeah, they're using him near the goal line too. I did see some metrics that said that Irving has a hard time getting in the end zone, by the way. When it's close, he usually scores from outside. So it does appear that Tucker will lead the team in touchdowns this season. All right, 2 players that are going to be drafted inside the top 5 in fantasy. I probably could say, honestly, George, inside the top 3 in the first round of fantasy football next year. Jahmyr Gibbs will have a higher ADP than Bijan Robinson next season.
Gibbs, I think, is close to your number 1 next year. I do. I think we'll trust him more than McCaffrey because he stays healthy. I'm sure in PPR, when he catches so many balls, so does McCaffrey. But we're going to love the Detroit offense here. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these guys, by the way. All right, I'd be happy with all of them. But I think me personally, if I had, if it was Gibbs, McCaffrey, which I think is really your 1-2 there, I'm going Gibbs.
No, and I think I think next year's number 1 fantasy draft pick, it's not that it's going to be bad. I just think there's a lot of variation going into next year. I could see any of 3 or 4 players as of right now going number 1. I would have said Jonathan Taylor, but he slowed down.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Game time! guess what, folks? All right? As we go through our Kevin 7, that's how you know it's a Tuesday, in case you're thinking it's a Monday. I don't know who's thinking that. We'll start at the bottom. We'll work our way to the top. 7 favorite bowl games. I'm going to start with this. This wasn't easy. It wasn't. I am seriously disappointed in some of the bowl matchups we got. I like bowl games. This isn't a Notre Dame thing, I promise. Last year, we bet every bowl game against the number. I think I maybe overslept and missed an 11 o'clock kick. That's not on me. All right? That's not on me. I want to bet every single bowl game this year against the number. People are going to say, awesome start, didn't bet the LA Bowl. I say, watch your mouth. All right? And I'd also say, do you mind if I skip tonight's game? We might have missed the best of the number. Okay? If you think I'm not addicted to giving you a running bit where I bet every bowl game and then proceed to only bet about 5 of them, you just got another thing coming. What we do have coming is 7 great bowl games, including Duke versus Arizona State, the seventh game I'm most excited for. What an honor. They should hang that in the banner of this football game. The Tony the Tiger, Kevin's 7th most exciting Sun Bowl game only on, I'm just saying. Here's the thing. I like Dillingham a lot. I assume he's going to be coaching Arizona State in this game. I don't know if Michigan comes a-calling. So that gets me to the window. Darian Mentz is a bit of a dog. And he might be a round 1 quarterback because someone's going to have to go round 1 after Mendoza, I think. Darian Mentz was hooping this year at Duke. I like Manny Diaz. I think they got that hire right. Here's another zag. I'm not sure Duke wouldn't have been a little interested in the playoff. And we'll just leave it at that. Number 6. The Alex Bregman Bowl. That's right. The only Red Sox right now I could think of is one who may not be on the team and is certainly a free agent. The Garrett Crochet Bowl. Now he's cooking. The David Ortiz Bowl. Now he's reaching. Now he's just going to the legends. UConn versus Army. Here's the interesting thing, right? As I sell you on Darian Mensa in the Sun Bowl, can I sell anybody on UConn's Joe Fagano right here in the Fenway Bowl? 28 touchdowns, 1 interception. This kid might have the goods. I'm going to be watching them against Army. I look forward to it. USC versus TCU, the Alamo Bowl. If USC's playing in a bowl, I'm going to be in. This not being higher is an indictment on the matchmaking and TCU. TCU might be electric, so I may be sorry and move that up. If USC's in a bowl game, I'm excited. But also, in parentheses, USC, stop tweeting out that you re-signed guys. That's weird, all right? But Mayava's back, so I guess he's playing. Number 4, let me just say this. You could argue this is the most important bowl game of all of bowl season. The Hawaii Bowl. Cal versus Hawaii. December 24th. I want you to look around at all the slates. NBA, no thanks. NFL, no thanks. College hoops, no thanks. And college football says, guess what? You get 1 game. It's insane. There should be 6 bowl games on. There's only 1. We salute you, Hawaii Bowl. Plus, JSK's over there throwing lasers. I look forward to it. A lot of passing in that game. You would assume good weather. I think I had a bad beat last year on the Hawaii Bowl. Wouldn't surprise me. Certainly wouldn't be the first. Now we're into the top 3. 16.5-point number. Don't care. Utah, Nebraska, that's what bowl season is about. This is a game you never see coming. It's a fun matchup, 2 proud programs, a lot of interesting things going on. Whittingham steps away from Utah. We're like, oh, he retired. And then he's like, nope, I just don't want to be here anymore. Rayola's in the portal. Is it because he's not that good or his uncle got fired or because they like TJ Lateef? Maybe yes to all the above. But I think Nebraska's interesting. Utah's been a wagon. I look forward to the Las Vegas Bowl. Pinstripe Bowl. The Aaron Judge Bowl. Anthony Volpe Bowl. The Anthony Volpe Bowl. Too easy. Penn State, Clemson. Klubnik's supposed to play. Penn State's got gumption ever since they fired James Franklin. Here's the thing about Kevin 7. And here's the thing about old K-Dubs. All right, we're not going to be hipsters. We're going to be honest. The best bowl game is Michigan, Texas. So that's number one. Arch is going to play. Arch is coming back. It's a shame they weren't in the playoff. I look forward to the Citrus Bowl. Who's going to be coaching Michigan? Rumor is it could be Yarnelli. That's all I'm saying. We talk to Craig Mish next.
For those of you who have never watched, we could easily just call it true or false, but we got creative because that's what we do. We create content here on the show. We call it buy or sell. Tucker will lead the Bucks in touchdowns this season. I never, ever would have thought that this would even be a buy or sell, but here we are.
It had to be frustrating last night that he stole the one, right? Got the goal line carry there. I don't know when he became the goal line back, but he is. That being said, this is a pretty easy buy for me. I mean, he's got 6. Rashad White has 4. You want to guess how many Bucky Irving has, Craig? How many touchdowns do you think Bucky Irving has this year? You're close. You're close. He's got uno.
Yeah, easy buy. Yeah, they're using him near the goal line too. I did see some metrics that said that Irving has a hard time getting in the end zone, by the way. When it's close, he usually scores from outside, so it does appear that Tucker will lead the team in touchdowns this season. All right, 2 players that are going to be drafted inside the top 5 in fantasy. I probably could say, honestly, George, inside the top 3 in the first round of fantasy football next year. Jahmyr Gibbs will have a higher ADP than Bijan Robinson next season.
Gibbs, I think, is close to your number 1 next year. I do. I think we'll trust him more than McCaffrey because he stays healthy. I'm sure in PPR when he catches so many balls, so does McCaffrey. But we love the Detroit offense here. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these guys, by the way. All right, I'd be happy with all of them. But I think me personally, if I had, if it was Gibbs, McCaffrey, which I think is really your 1-2 there, I'm going Gibbs.
No, and I think I think next year's number 1 fantasy draft pick, it's not that it's going to be bad. I just think there's a lot of variation going into next year. I could see any of 3 or 4 players as of right now going number 1. I would have said Jonathan Taylor, but he slowed down.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Game time decisions. We are live on SportsGrid. We've got eyes on the live board. Tennessee, Louisville, Duke, Lipscomb, Michigan State blowing out Toledo. We'll keep our eyes on all of this. But we're trying to keep our eyes on all of everything. It's why we bring in our guy, Craig Mish. Of course, you can catch here Monday through Friday on Newswire and on SportsGrid. Does an excellent job helping out with FST as well. We'll mix in a little bit of football. Craig, it is always great to see you, my friend.
Kevin, great to see you in person the other day, too. It was awesome to catch up with everyone at SportsGrid in New York and New Jersey, but now it's time for me to get back to the warmer weather here, Kevin. Sorry, once it gets below 70 here, it starts to get cold.
Listen, it's a great move by you. It's a great move by you as far as it goes here. It's freezing. My check engine light's been on for over a week. I've not really addressed it. I had to shovel on Sunday. There was a lot going on. So, listen, I'm envious. You're in the right spot, but you're also the right guy to ask about a lot of these different Major League Baseball stories that are breaking. I think one of the things that I appreciated is we actually got real names signing before, February. Like, we actually felt like we had a modicum of free agency happening.
Agreed.
Which move enticed you more, Edwin Diaz to the Dodgers or Pete Alonso to the Orioles?
Well, look, the Mets story in general is interesting just because it's just so stunning to me to see the Mets getting outbid on players when you would think that there's no chance of that ever happening. It had to be strategic. I can't believe, knowing what I know and how free agency works, that the Mets weren't aware of anything like that, Kevin. Like, I've been through this before, so I know. And essentially, there's no question in my mind, regardless of what Diaz told the media today and whatever you're going to hear from Pete Alonso, if you're an agent, you're doing your job going back to the Mets and just saying, hey, look, are you sure that this is where you want to go? And in some way, that definitely happened, I believe, with Alonso. And I believe it happened with Edwin Diaz, too. So I'll be following the Mets real close to see what they do from here as far as Alonso is concerned. I think the first 2-3 years of this deal is going to be fantastic for Baltimore. And then Alonso will have to creep over to the DH position, which is where I think he's going to end up long term, meaning that the back end of this contract. And as far as closers are concerned, I never think that this is a good investment for any closer. I think 1-2 year deals maximum for these guys is where you go. They're throwing so hard, Kevin. They're all throwing sliders. They're all trying to spin the ball. There's Kenley Jansen. There's Billy Wagner. There's Mariano Rivera, Trevor Hoffman. And then there's like everybody else who's like a good reliever for 2-3 years, and that's it. So, I think the Diaz deal in particular is probably going to go sour for the Dodgers eventually, but do they care? No, because they just keep deferring all the money for everybody that they sign.
Yeah. What's interesting, though, Craig, is the Mets not getting Pete Alonso wasn't that surprising. It felt more impactful, I think, because of the Diaz stuff, but they never loved Pete in the front office as much as I think their fans did. The Edwin stuff was a little more surprising to me. They get Devin Williams, and I feel like a lot of the reporting that followed that was they want to pair Williams with Diaz, and then they're beat out by the Dodgers. I don't know if Diaz just had a desire to be in Los Angeles, and just to what you said, the whole vibe around the Mets was supposed to be this wouldn't happen. So I don't know, does this add to more of these questions around baseball, the future of baseball, the salary cap of it all, or is it a blip moment? It was just all confusing to me, honestly.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything this offseason that's been egregious to that point. We still have a ways to go. Maybe Kyle Tucker ends up with the Dodgers. You bring me back, and then we can have that conversation again. But for now, I think it's been pretty standard. I think, Kevin, the more that you look at it, and the president of baseball operations of the Mets is David Stearns, who comes from a very strong background in Milwaukee. And you're going to see, I think, Matt Arnold, his protege, end up getting a job, any job that he wants in baseball, too. He's done a great job, too. So when you see the Mets striking out and not getting these players, there's no chance in my mind that Stearns didn't know that this was a possibility. Yeah. And I think they went into the offseason, personally, it sounds to me like Stearns may have went to Steve Cohen and said, hey, look, we are not winning with these guys. With Nimmo, with Diaz, with Pete. Like, we got to shake it up. We got to get new players. We got to try something new. We can't keep going down this road with a $300 million payroll. And I'm going to guess that, if there's anyone that Steve Cohen's going to lean on and trust, it's got to be David Stearns at this point. He's running his baseball operation. So we'll see what the future holds here. But I do feel like this is a mini breakup of the Mets.
Is that then, though, because if I'm not mistaken, the real big fish that still remains out there is Kyle Tucker. Do you think the idea for the Mets, but I'm also curious where you think Tucker lands, is to bring in a Kyle Tucker, or, hey, listen, this year is going to be what it is, and then we'll reassess 2027. I don't know how that's an acceptable answer either.
Yeah, look, I think what the Mets could do, Kevin, is pivot over to him, and then all of a sudden it would look like a very successful offseason for the Mets by losing those and getting Tucker. This is why you can't make these decisions on teams succeeding or failing on December 16th. Maybe January 16th we can have a deeper conversation about it, but there's so much time to go before all this starts. My sense is that Tucker is going to probably play the Blue Jays against everybody else. It does sound like there's some genuine interest in that. But what would be the point of signing now when you can get other teams in the mix and get more money? The agent is just doing his job. I would guess Toronto. I would guess New York. Both New York's probably in play. And then beyond that, I don't see any. I haven't heard of any like surprise teams like some of those other markets like Seattle and Texas. You would think, okay, they'll jump back in there. It doesn't seem to be the case. And honestly, sadly enough, I don't understand this, but it would seem to me that the Giants would be wide open for Kyle Tucker to sign and play long term.
Wow.
That'd be a great place. Maybe not the best hitting environment for some hitters, but I do think that the Giants eventually are going to land one of these big fishes.
Yeah,
Kevin, one of these years, you would think they didn't get Judge, they didn't get Correa. There's some issues happened there too. I would think at some point someone's going to want to play in San Francisco in that beautiful ballpark and become the next franchise icon because they have the money to spend.
So it's been interesting, though, because one of the other teams that it feels like they want to be in the mix, but I'm sure they're trying to figure out the specifics of it all, is Pittsburgh. And they seemingly did have interest in Kyle Schwarber. Schwarber ultimately resigns, but there is going to be this pressure, and it's good pressure to have associated with this franchise as long as they have Paul Skeens, because when you have a player that good, the idea is win at a high level. But again, but it's interesting though, Craig. It doesn't feel like is there another splash move that can be made other than signing Kyle Tucker for any of these baseball teams?
No, the only big splash would be if some of these rumors ended up being true with Tariq Skubal getting traded. That would certainly change one team's entire offseason when you're talking about the best pitcher in baseball. It seems as though there's enough smoke to think that maybe this could potentially happen. I would be stunned. This would be the impact of example of Washington trading Soto to San Diego at the time. I just thought there was no way that they would ever do that, and that happened. And then I thought there was no way that Ohtani, that the Angels would let him go. This is one of those moves where if Detroit decided to move on from Skubal, I just don't think there's any coming back from that. He's that good.
The Skubal market, is there a timeline people would expect that to be finalized, Craig? From a trade perspective, right?
Well, you still have Framber Valdez out there and Suarez and some other pitchers too. And so that's like not getting Skubal, but getting Skubal light. So we'll have to see who gets those players before those decisions are made. Some of the big pitchers still out there.
Yeah, listen, I think it's an interesting time, and I'm there's a lot going on, and everyone's trying to get better, but there's only so many guys available, and the Mets. It's been interesting though. The Mets have had this loud offseason for all the wrong reasons, but also knowing it's a baseball offseason, it is only the middle of December, so there's usually a lot of time left. We're going to keep Craig around. I got a couple of football questions to throw his way, so we're going to hit this quick break. We'll also get you a live update on this college basketball board. Keep it right here. We're live on SportsGrid.
For those of you who have never watched, we could easily just call it true or false, but we got creative because that's what we do. We create content here on the show. We call it buy or sell. Tucker will lead the Bucks in touchdowns this season. I never, ever would have thought that this would even be a buy or sell, but here we are.
It had to be frustrating last night that he stole the one, right? Got the goal line carry there. I don't know when he became the goal line back, but he is. That being said, this is a pretty easy buy for me. I mean, he's got 6. Rashad White has 4. You want to guess how many Bucky Irving has, Craig? How many touchdowns do you think Bucky Irving has this year? You're close. You're close. He's got uno.
Yeah, easy buy. Yeah, they're using him near the goal line too. I did see some metrics that said that Irving has a hard time getting in the end zone, by the way. When it's close, he usually scores from outside. So it does appear that Tucker will lead the team in touchdowns this season. All right, 2 players that are going to be drafted inside the top 5 in fantasy. I probably could say, honestly, George, inside the top 3 in the first round of fantasy football next year. Jahmyr Gibbs will have a higher ADP than Bijan Robinson next season.
Gibbs, I think, is close to your number 1 next year. I do. I think we'll trust him more than McCaffrey because he stays healthy. I'm sure in PPR when he catches so many balls, so does McCaffrey. But we love the Detroit offense here. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these guys, by the way. All right, I'd be happy with all of them. But I think me personally, if I had, it was Gibbs, McCaffrey, which I think is really your 1-2 there. I'm going Gibbs.
No, and I think I think next year's number 1 fantasy draft pick. It's not that it's going to be bad. I just think there's a lot of variation going into next year. I could see any of 3 or 4 players as of right now going number 1. I would have said Jonathan Taylor, but he slowed down.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Live right here on SportsGrid. You still got Tennessee up on Louisville. That game is trending a little bit lower scoring than the pregame expectations, 147 and a half live. Duke is up and controlling the game against Lipscomb. They're not going to lose that game, but they're also certainly not going to come close to covering unless they go on an outrageous run in these final 9 minutes. Michigan State is just absolutely smashing Toledo right now. They were, I think, only a 23.5-point favorite. They're up 30 in the second half. So we'll keep eyes on all of this. The NBA Cup game still to come. We'll re-rack all those best bets. We're joined by our guy, Craig Mishto, here on this Tuesday night. And there's a couple of NFL things I wanted to just throw you, Craig. I think there's a lot of interesting things going on right now in this league. And obviously, it's Kansas City Chiefs season ending and Mahomes having his ACL torn not being the same thing is an interesting spot, right? Like they were going to be, it didn't feel like they were going to win that game, even if he didn't get injured when he got injured. But even if they won that game, their chances of making the playoffs were super long as is. But it does now super put our eyes towards this offseason and what is this going to be? Because now you have questions around the quarterback that you obviously were never anticipating. What do you make of the Kansas City Chiefs right now? Not as much maybe rest of season, but the outlook for a team that has been there every single year until this year with Mahomes.
Yeah, I think they got a little lucky last year. A lot lucky last year if you watch a lot of the outcomes of their games, so it didn't surprise me if they lost the Eagles in the Super Bowl. I do think the Chiefs have one of those we're smarter than you kind of things going here, Kevin, for the last, 5 years or so, where it's like, do we really need a running back or can we just get Kareem Hunt? Do we really need a receiver or can we just get Juju Smith-Schuster and, Hollywood Brown involved in the offense? I think that really is the key. The window now, I think, is still open for the next few years for Patrick Mahomes. And I think defensively they're fine. They've got a great coach. I think offensively it is time for them to go out and make that move for Jefferson, or Chase, or just like a mega star on the outside. And I thought of it too, but Joe P was on the show with me today, and he mentioned something that I was thinking of as well, is like when the Patriots window seemed to be closing, Kevin, several years ago, they went out and they got Randy Moss. And they didn't win the Super Bowl with him, but it got them right back going again. And then they got Antonio Brown, and for a minute, it looked like they got right back going again. They need, I think, to hit free agency in a way that they have just been ambivalent about. It's almost like, we don't need to do that because we could just find just some retread running back, or retread receiver, or second-rate tight end or offensive lineman. I think that's what's got to change. I think they have to hit free agency, Kevin. I think they have to go for those, future Hall of Famer, last couple of years on their contract, and see if they can extend this window a little bit longer. To me, that's the way that they have to try it.
So to your point, they could have had Breece Hall, right? And they just didn't meet the price. We can say the price was outrageous, but if you ask Chiefs fans, now maybe this wouldn't have been the case, but hey, bringing in Breece Hall could have actually changed your entire season. That becomes a much different price that you're paying for. But the way they approach it, Craig, is why I now feel there's a level of uncertainty around this team moving forward that's never been there before. There is a clean split, Mahomes' first 5 seasons in the NFL to these last 3, where he has gone from the, by far and away, best quarterback in football to something very different. The efficiency numbers have all fallen off of a cliff. Passing touchdowns, passing yards, passer rating, yards per attempt. He's 1 or 2 in every single one of them. He's outside of the top 15 in yards per attempt and passer rating since Eric Bieniemy left and Matt Nagy took over. And the expectations in that room are when Andy Reid retires, Matt Nagy might take over. So I hate the operation. And now you have Mahomes off of an ACL tear. And we don't know what that looks like. Mobility isn't everything for him, but it's not nothing, Craig. That escapability, that pocket presence. I love what feels like a discount price. And the Chiefs could fit that description next year. But I think it's on the board that this team, I almost now, Craig, would be surprised if they're favorites to win the AFC West entering next season.
Yeah, I think it's possible, but again, and look, Derrick Henry did not win the Super Bowl for the Ravens, but that was a huge acquisition for them.
Yeah.
And that's a team that kind of deals in the opposite. They'll go out and get a big defensive free agent or get a running back or make a trade. I just think, Kevin, that the Chiefs have to do that. I don't know who that player is. Is it moving up in the draft, maybe to get Jeremiah Love? Now all of a sudden they've got a fantastic running back. Is it, as I mentioned, getting Justin Jefferson from the Minnesota Vikings? Now, because look, I mean, Worthy, he's fine, and Rashee Rice, he's good, and Kelsey's a Hall of Famer. He's got to get some major help, I think, to make this move forward. I do think, to me, I thought he played better. Maybe I'm wrong metric-wise, but I thought he played better this year, Mahomes did, than he played last year. I'm not sure if those numbers would add up, but it seemed to me that he played a little bit better. So the internal help has not been enough to get them over the top. And too many games of scoring 13 points.
He had been, Craig, way better. And then over the last 6 weeks, he's been awful. And I know that that's just weird for people to say. But, and again, I know none of these catch-all stats are perfect. But, Craig, so they've lost 5 of 6. In that 6-week window, the bottom 3 in passer rating, Shador, Mahomes, McCarthy. Like, that's the you know what I mean? It's a number, right? I'm not cherry picking it. It's since the losing's been going on. It's Shador, who doesn't really look like an NFL quarterback, and McCarthy, who doesn't really look like an NFL quarterback. I mean, it's jarring to see. And again, I'm in no way trying to say it's all on him, but he has not felt like, other than when the playoffs start, the best quarterback in football. And listen, it's huge to feel like that when the playoffs start, but it's not the end all be all. So I think it's a really, really
I think he's got to get
time.
help, man. I mean, Brady, they added Corey Dillon at one point. He was one of the best running backs in the NFL at the time. I'm just saying, like, what have they done for this guy? Who have they brought in free agent wise to help this guy on a Super Bowl type level? Like Brady got all that help. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, Craig, listen, I really appreciate it. As always, great stuff from Craig and Mish. Make sure you check out Newswire right here on SportsGrid. Best bets and closing thoughts after the break, live on Game Time Decisions. I'm just saying, if I were a good NFL head coach, if I were a hot offensive coordinator, and that coaching cycle's going to come around, and they're like, hey, do you want the Giants job? Or do you want the Michigan job? I think the Michigan job is much better.
Game Time Decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
They're doing a new show about a Japanese interpreter.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they're doing like I don't know if it's a documentary or like actors are in it.
It's got to.
I think it's a drama.
It's a real show.
It's like a scripted show.
Yeah.
About a Japanese interpreter.
Yes.
I wonder who's getting paid for that.
The Craig Carton Show. Only on SportsGrid.
You ain't buying no tickets.
Who isn't?
You're not going
I'm
to
saying
these
if I'm a
games.
fan. Of course I'm not. There's a fan. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, but if you were a fan, I thought you were a fan of the Hurricanes. You're not anymore.
They told me.
They smashed
I told them to donate my tickets.
Yeah, so I get it. But the fans travel. They have money, believe it or not. It's amazing.
In this economy,
but they have money. I don't know. See what Kelsey says about the economy.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Look, the trend continues to go to Blake Corum. He's still available. I can't believe he's still available. So if you have Kyron Williams, you got to have Blake Corum on your roster. And if you don't have Kyron Williams, I think you still want Blake Corum on your roster. You got to have these insurance policies on your roster at the very least. Even in a shallow league, if Blake Corum's floating out there, don't let him float out there. The last thing you want to have happen is for him to end up on some other team and then taking you the next couple weeks to win a championship.
Fantasy Sports Today. Only on SportsGrid.
right, guys, back with you right here on Sports Grid. A couple of things we're going to get to. Let's just start with this, okay? Jacksonville State, Troy. I really enjoy betting the bowl games, and I also think, and I don't, this. So it all depends who you are as it pertains to, do you like to bet totals? Do you like to bet sides? Do you like to bet props? I feel as if a lot of people love betting props. I've talked about this on air before, but I had a stretch where, though, I just would not bet sides. I didn't do it. There was a number of reasons. Last year, that's why I set out and I bet every single side of every single bowl game. And I found it to be a helpful exercise. And you'll notice my NFL cards this year, always with sides, college, whatever it might be. It's, the Knicks -2.5 tonight for a best bet. We'll talk about that more in a second. So I really enjoy it. Jacksonville State, Troy, just to break this game down a little bit more, you have two teams that played in their conference championship games. Big gap in opponent, though, right? Troy was kind of dead man walking against JMU. Jacksonville State played kind of saw in a close game. They lost on a touchdown that came in the final minute. You have they each played one common opponent in Southern Miss. Jacksonville State lost that game by 17. They lost a turnover battle 4-1. That was the defining story of that game. But that game also was the introduction to Caden Creel, who's their quarterback. Not a great throw of the football. Elite runner, has a rushing prop over 100 in this game. Troy did beat Southern Miss by 28-18 in their final game of the season. A lot of good passing attack work, and they did that with Goose Crowder, who was the reason we played the over in the JMU game. He got injured in that game. Well, Goose Crowder's apparently going to be healthy and good to go here. Is he fully healthy? Is it a full go for Goose Crowder? I think that's interesting. But I think due to some of the opt-outs shading towards being more damaging to Troy, starting running back, offensive line, injury questions still around the quarterback, this line has just kept running. So this opens 3.5 to Troy. We now have, and let me just pull this up here because we try and pull up a different number of odds boards. I think we have a 3.5 out there at -120 on Troy. And if that's the case, no, so it's going to be, it looks like it's just a flat 3. Maybe it was out there for a bit. No, you can get it at -120. I may rather go against those 7 points of movement and play what is probably, over the course of the season, a better football team who may be a little undervalued, because if Goose Crowder's going to go, Goose Crowder's better. I promise, and I'll thread it. You will see the tweet, but I'm telling you this now. One of two things will happen, okay? Either I'm going to take 3.5 with Troy, or I'm going to start betting them tomorrow. But I think we're going to get in the mix tonight on Troy. So that's one thing. One other thing, because it's a Tuesday, we usually just try and go through some of the early NFL lines, things to watch, things that stood out a little bit in those games. Kansas City is between 3.5 and 3 on the road to Tennessee. That's a KC spot. The Titans are awful. And Gardner Minshew should be able to come in and still get a win, unless the Chiefs want to quit on the season, but I don't really think they will. I don't. So I'm interested in KC going to Tennessee. That was just one game that caught my attention. Another that did is, listen, I don't know. There's some temptation on Dallas against the Chargers, right? If you look at the last two Chargers games, the offense has been not all that good. Defense has handled their business. Dallas had been getting booked like a big-time team for a couple of weeks in a row. That now comes back down to reality. There's been movement towards Dallas, which makes sense from the earliest of opens, but Dallas is a bit intriguing to me in that football game. And here's just another thing to watch on, and something maybe we'll talk about more. I should have probably asked Craig about it. It looks like Tua's going to get benched, and I know Tua's awful. He's better than Zach Wilson or Quinn Ewers. Joe Burrow being underneath a field goal favorite against Quinn Ewers or Zach Wilson, I don't know, maybe it's the chalk man of the century, but that just looks like an opportunity that you can't really pass up on. Also, the Raiders are getting 14.5 against the Texans. It is a good thing I adore this Texans team, because that number is insane. but I still may have to play the Raiders on that number. Best bets tonight still to come. The NBA Cup, of course, folks. The Knicks, -2.5. I think they get the job done here against the San Antonio Spurs. We got a good number here on New York. Yarnelli's going to back Josh Hart over the 13.5 rebounds plus assists. In-game live is next right here on SportsGrid.